All right, theme should be a review for you guys, so we're going to go through this kind of quickly. Remember, it is a video, so you can pause whenever you need to. You should be taking notes on this. So on your unit organizer, on line 6, you want to write theme, and you should be continuing your notes after the aha moment. So make sure that you put the date, you write down theme, and you pause the video to write down the things that you think you need to write down. You can pause the video at the beginning of the slide or the end of the slide. If you want to hear some of the explanation, pause at the end and then jot your notes down. When you're ready to go, press play to move on to the next slide. Okay, theme is our message, our big takeaway, the thing that the author wants us to understand after we're finished reading and apply to our lives. The important thing to remember is that theme is not a word. You guys have probably heard that a million times before, but it's not a word, it's a sentence. Okay, so love is not a theme. Okay, it's a sentence that expresses a lesson about love. Okay, so you have some examples. Money can't buy happiness. Don't judge people based on their surface. It's better to die free than to live under tyranny. These are lessons that we can take away from specific characters, specific plot, and then apply to our lives in a larger setting. Okay, you'll notice that some of these examples are somewhat of a cliche. There are some teachers who are not going to want you to use cliches for your themes. Mrs. Chiavello, Mrs. Potenzone, and I do not mind if you use a cliche as long as you explain the message. You explain how you came to that conclusion, you explain what it means, you explain how it applies to life in general. Okay? So let's take a look at an example. I'm going to read it to you, but if you don't want the reading, you can go ahead and pause or skip through it and just read it on your own and take a stab at coming up with the theme, though, before you move on to the next slide. Jenny was so excited. She had a pack of Starbursts in her lunch, and she had been looking forward to eating them all morning. Lunch finally came, and Jenny sat down to eat her Starbursts when her friend, Yudi, sat down next to her. "Let me get the pink ones," asked Yudi. Jenny liked the pink ones best, but she thought Yudi was funny, and Jenny wanted Yudi to like her. So Jenny gave Yudi all of her pink Starbursts. Before Jenny was done giving Yudi the pink ones, Carrie sat on the other side of Jenny. "Let me get the red one and the orange ones, Jenny. Remember when I gave you that Snickers?" Jenny didn't remember that, though she did remember when Carrie ate a whole Snickers in front of her. But Jenny thought Carrie was cool, so she gave her the red and the orange Starbursts. Now that she only had the yellow ones, Jenny wasn't so excited about eating Starbursts anymore. Pause the video, take a minute to figure out what you think the theme is. Remember, you are considering the character's development, you are considering the plot, you are considering the conflict in order to help you understand the theme that's been developed. But the theme is not those specific things. It's a general message that we can take away from those specific things. So take a minute, try to think about the theme. Okay, some examples of what you might have come up with that you can't buy friends. The two characters who asked for the Starburst wanted something for themselves. They weren't interested in being Jenny's friend. And the fact that she shared with them didn't make them more interested in being her friends. You have to take care of yourself. So the idea that Jenny wanted to be nice and she wanted to share, which is a good quality to have. But you have to be careful that you don't share so much that you can't take care of yourself. And not everybody is your friend, which relates to what we were talking about with the first one as well. Some people might act like they are your friends to get things from you, but they are not. Okay, the other important thing to keep in mind with themes we talked about already is the idea that theme is bigger than the story. So you have the specific small world of the story, and the author wants us to take away the message, take away the theme, and apply it to the real world. Okay? The other thing to keep in mind is that themes are not clearly stated unless you're reading like Aesop's Fables. Although, well, sometimes they're stated, but not always in Aesop's Fables. But the majority of the time, anything that we're reading in class, the author's not going to come right out and say what the theme is. It's implied. You have to pull all of the information we were talking about before, the plot, the character development, the dialogue, the conflict, everything that's gone on in the story, we have to pull it together and we have to figure out what the message is that's being implied. We have to infer the message. Don't forget to pause to jot down any notes that you might need. Okay, and just to reiterate that themes are not small and specific, they're big picture, they're applied to the real world. So the theme for the example that we gave was not that yellow starburst tastes bad, or that Jenny doesn't like yellow starburst, or it's not that Judy and Carrie are bad friends. It's not about the kind of friends they are. It's about what kind of people are your friends and are not your friends in general in the real world. Okay. Okay, so quick recap. Here is where, if you don't have these three things in your notes somewhere, when you pause to jot things down, you need to make sure you have these three things. These are your three biggest takeaways about theme. Okay? Let's think back to Coach Drake from yesterday with our dialogue. If we consider everything that happened, the things that were said, and what Coach Drake decided to do after speaking with his son. So again, we're pulling together plot, we're pulling together dialogue, we're pulling together characters' traits and growth and development. We're considering all of those things together, and we're trying to make an inference about the theme. So consider all of those things that we looked at with Coach Drake yesterday. Take a minute, jot down what you think the theme is of Coach Drake's story. Okay, so like we said before, the textual evidence. Coach Drake shouts at his football team after they lose a game. That's part of the plot, and it's part of his character traits. He comforts his son, who was upset after losing a baseball game. That's the dialogue that we looked at. So that's his attitude. That's what happened with what happened with his son. Then after that conversation, he realizes that people make mistakes, and he should go easier on his team. So again, character growth, plot point. Okay, now. We put all those things together, and what do we think the theme is? Patience and encouragement may be more effective than anger and fear. Okay, when we consider all of those aspects of the text, that's the big lesson that the author wants us to take away. Okay, so let's look at one more example together. Angie loved to draw. She made colorful designs of people's names with bright hearts and flowers, but she lost her own markers, so she borrowed her teacher's. The school day was ending, but Angie wanted to keep coloring, so she took the teacher's markers home and lost them in her messy room. She came back to school the next day and wanted to color again, so she asked the teacher for more markers. The teacher replied, "Sure, Angie, but this is my last pack." Angie said she would be careful, but by the end of the day, the markers were scattered all over the floor, and the custodian swept them up and disposed of them. When Angie came in the next day, she asked the teacher for more markers, but she was disappointed to find that there weren't any more. "I don't know where all of my markers went," said the teacher, "but I don't have them." Angie had to draw her pictures with drab pencils. Okay, consider the plot points. Consider the dialogue. Consider the character growth. Then look big picture, put them all together. What do you think the theme is? Take a minute, jot it down. Okay, simply stated, we could say that it's to take care of shared resources, take care of things that everybody relies on. The other takeaway that we might have is that some things will not replenish after they are exhausted, excuse me. So we don't have an unlimited supply of things. We need to take care of the things that we have. because they might be the only things that we get. Okay, if you had any questions while you were going through this, jot them down and make sure to ask us tomorrow.